that in common.
It happens sometimes, man.
You know, when I was a young man, they told me not to smoke the devil's lettuce. And I felt like I had to because they told me not to. Here's another headline I noticed over the weekend. We do have some Trump sound. So before I go headline jumping, Fancy Brian, let's play a little sound for the fair audience. Little Trump, deep in the heart of Texas. Just a couple, not a lot of broccoli, little cheese sauce on it for you. But here he is, Trump talking about increasing ICE. Cut 10.
When Republicans retake Congress, one of the first things they should do is pass a bill massively increasing the number of ICE officers.
Massively increasing the number of ICE officers. Let's not forget what was Trump's launch speech like in 2015, came down the escalator and talked about the Mexican, the murderers and the rapists, and I'm sure good people. A little bit more from Trump back in Texas, deep in the heart. Cut 11. What about voter ID?
When Republicans take over, we need to pass voter ID, signature verification, residency confirmation.
Residency confirmation, because you wouldn't want those, murderers and rapists, and I'm sure good people from south of the border voting illegally. And then the more troubling one, although there were a couple of troubling headline makers coming out of this big rally, but the more troubling one, what? Pardons for the people on January 6th, because they're his kind of people, the real patriots. Go home with love, something like that. What do you say on Saturday?
If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
It does not require pardons. To my opinion, they are despicable criminals, but they're also your kind of people, Trump. Trump's always used the pardon power, right? Let's not forget the Steve Bannon and the Roger Stone and the Michael Flynn.
But
all
they did nothing wrong.
Corrupt co-conspirators.
But they did nothing wrong.
Pardon prior.
Right, but they did nothing wrong. That's why they need pardons. You see how that works?
Wasn't there a promise of pardons associated with the planning, at least the reporting we've seen? Now, I think it was Paul Gosar, maybe one of the Republican Congress people still awaiting indictment, allegedly, because they haven't been indicted yet.
It was dangled.
But they were talking about blanket pardons for those that would come and be a part at the ellipse and the incitement of the further insurrection and rally forthcoming on January 6th. But the organizers thereof, they were all dangled pardons, right?
At least mid-level management, yeah.
And I think many of those that, took part in the big, what do they call it these days, riot, what are they calling it, a festive act of love. Well, many of those people were expecting pardons, on Trump's way out the door. Well, I guess they're going to have to vote for him again, at least those that are not felons and that are still eligible to vote. But Trump also called for protest if prosecutors do anything illegal in targeting him. Different source, Hill.com. Former President Trump on Saturday warned of the biggest protest we've ever had in the United States if prosecutors do anything illegal in their investigations into him and his business. Speaking at a rally in Conroe, Texas, on Saturday, Trump spoke about the local and federal probes targeting his businesses and political activities. One more quote. If these radical, vicious, racist prosecutors do anything wrong or illegal, I hope we are going to have in this country the biggest protest we've ever had in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Atlanta, and elsewhere, because our country and our elections are corrupt and are being, prosecuted in multiple jurisdictions. So you're going to have lots of rallies.
What a poor, whiny little baby little boy.
It's almost like he doesn't care anymore. According to Maggie Haberman at the New York Times, she's saying of a legitimate journalist. I prefer to think of myself more as a journalist adjacent. Come back with us. The Monday edition of the Devil's Advocates. Brian's back in the chair. Your phone calls could be next. 844-967-2789.
That plays great before the election. Now we don't care.
I don't care about those people, man. I could care less what they think.
The American dream.
19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Managing today's uncertainty can be overwhelming. Focus on what you can control, even if it's little things, like your before bedtime ritual.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
They say singing can help you remember things, so here's some tips for parents out there during these tough times. Number 1, make sure your kids wash their hands for 20 seconds after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside. 2, virtual play dates. Social and physical distancing can help save lives. 3, tell them they're safe and show your love and pride. Yes, we'll get through this together. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates, he would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Dad, I picked up your pills, made your lunch, and your laundry is done.
When you care for a loved one, you take care of everything. But are you taking care of yourself? Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Spruce up your home with soy candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents. Did you know our candle jars are also double old-fashioned glasses? That's right, buy a candle and you get a free cocktail glass. Check out our blog at wiscohomegoods.com/blog for more information. That's wiscohomegoods.com/blog.
Hey, cook it up!
Jace, bruh. 513, baby. Stand up.
The Devil's Advocates. So relevant, they have one foot in tomorrow.
If you're unaware, this is the fight song of the Bengals. Where'd you find this one?
This is called Who Dey by Yates Bro. So and it says Cincinnati Bengals song, and all I see here are Cincinnati Bengals highlights, and they're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. So I mean, all right,
Bengals supportive. Well, yeah. We'll get there in a minute. The football is what made this weekend redeeming. A lot of good football, at least on Sunday. 2 great games. And I got to tell you, I'm a bandwagon Bengals fan now.
Well, at this point,
I'm on the bandwagon.
Team, most people are going to be on the bandwagon, especially in this area. You don't get many Bengals fans or you don't get many Rams fans in this area.
There was an article in the Washington Post on Joe Burrow, of all the quarterback for the Bengals. Yeah. I didn't really know the kid's story. He's from that area of the state. Mm-hmm. That's sort of where Ohio meets Kentucky. That's sort of Appalachia.
Yeah. There's also where the right outside of Cincinnati is Covington, Kentucky, where the Creationist Museum is. You can see dinosaurs and people living together in the Creationist Museum.
Well, I missed that. I did drive past that. I told you I drove out to rural Tennessee, like White People's Burg or something like that. Remember, it was like Whitesburg.
There's a lot of suspicious names.
It was in Appalachia, but farther south, to Tennessee. But apparently he's from that, that hard knuckle region of southeastern Ohio. And literally raised up his community, a community that had been devastated by factory closures. And they had a tornado there, like the football field had been eradicated. And this kid just carried their football team to the state championship. And this was not a locality known for great football.
Yeah.
So his talents raised this team and got him to the state runner-up. I mean, they lost the championship game like 57-52. And it's you're like, well, this kid, he's a good high school player. Went on to go to Ohio State, didn't play there, couldn't make the field, and went down and played for LSU and was 14-0, right? Won a national championship in college. Undefeated. Unbelievable season the kid had. And was he number 1 overall? I mean, that's how bad Cincinnati won like 2 games 2 years ago.
They really aren't good.
And then like 4 games. And then this year they're going to the Super Bowl. And before this great comeback that happened this Sunday, I was already cheering for the kid because I had read this Washington Post article. And I'm like, any guy that transcends sports and raises an entire community and lifts, a whole region on his shoulders, how can you not cheer for that? I love that story. So it's a great story. So, go Bengals and give me some ribs, or what was that?
Give me some chicken wings and watch the Bengals. I'm down with that. I'll get some chicken wings and watch the Bengals.
Let's do so. 844-967-2789. And we have a few related stories. We'll get to them. But first, your calls. Tom from Madison, you're the first. Welcome, Tom. What do you got for us?
Hey, Michael.
Hey,
yeah,
fella.
we're talking about Trump pardoning everybody. And it took me back to 2015 when he told people at his rallies that they should just go and beat people up, and then he would pay all the legal costs.
Well, yes, of course. He said that a couple times, but, you can't take him so literally just because people took him literally, Tom.
So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously.
Something like that, Tom?
I think that was definitely. And, when it comes to racism, he's right. There are so few orange Americans that it's bound to come back at you sometime.
When you're such a small minority, a protected class of sorts, right?
Only one.
Orange former presidents.
Yeah, that's it. Have a good one, Gertie.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks for listening. 844-967-2789. Your calls, always appreciated. Mark from the SAC. Welcome, Mark. What do you got for us?
Hey, yeah, I think I'll probably be pulling for the Bengals as well. If I even bother to watch the Super Bowl, but with Trump, dangling pardons out there, that here he's, kind of breaking the law again. Says, vote for me and I'll pardon you for the crimes you've committed. That it's pretty discouraging.
Well, Mark, isn't that a quandary for all these Republicans that want to pretend like he wasn't trying to overturn the last election? For all these
it is.
Get along and go along sort of Republicans. Oh, I disagree with what he says, but he was the leader of the party. So, we followed and I voted for him, of course, and I support the man, but, I completely disagree. But of course he didn't want to overturn the election. He was just trying to uphold his legal challenges and that kind of crap. Well, that didn't hold up. Time's not holding that one up very well, Mark. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it certainly isn't, and you've got to hold these people's feet to the fire now that are calling to testify, and that if they plead the fifth and they got the paperwork to say that you're guilty, then there's you put that forth as evidence. You jail them all now as quickly as possible and make it, convict them of felonies.
Lock them up.
And vote in the next
Lock them up. I appreciate that thought. Yes. If there are provable crimes, you lock them up. I'm not sure if all of the crimes being alleged are the lock them up sort of variety. I mean, a lot of these are white collar crimes. And I'm not saying I don't want to see some people go to jail, but a lot of the Capitol insurrectionists aren't even going to prison or going to jail, or they're getting, 21 days of home confinement. Hell, I got that for a college riot. Huber, day camp, all that stuff. They throw that out to white privileged first offenders, or at least that was my personal experience. Come back with us. Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Phone lines, they're open for you. 844-967-2789. Did you hear about the tragedy being described by Ron Johnson over the weekend? Maybe it was last week. Athletes falling dead on the field. I mean, maybe that's what happened to the Packers' chances. They died on the cold Lambeau frozen tundra. But I have not actually seen any news accounts of any dead athletes, certainly not during the NFL playoffs. And apparently, Rojo claims they're dying because they got vaccinated. I might dispute that point when we come back. More Devil's Advocates. It's a Monday.
It's that YB23. It's that YB23.
personal file, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
It could be, it might be, it is Devil Radio 92.7.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Over the past 30 years, Chad's Design Build has grown and improved how we do things, but we've never lost sight of our commitment to be a great place to work, focused on quality renovations for outstanding clients. Paying a living wage and providing excellent benefits to promote work-life balance does in fact attract outstanding people, which helps to explain our stellar reputation. Thank you, Madison, for 30 amazing years, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. This is Chad Spate for Chad's Design.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished higher, the Dow up 406 points, but the market still logged their worst monthly loss since the early days of the pandemic. A new report says social gatherings held by Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his staff while Britain was in lockdown represent a serious failure to observe the standards expected of government. Johnson responded by saying,
"Sorry, and I'm sorry for the things we simply didn't get right, and also sorry for the way that this matter has been handled."
Allegations the prime minister and his staff flouted restrictions imposed on the country to curb the spread of the coronavirus have caused public anger, led some conservative lawmakers to call for Johnson's resignation, and triggered intense infighting inside the governing party. New Orleans is set to become the nation's first major district to mandate vaccinations for children 5 and up, though state regulations in Louisiana will allow parents to opt out easily. I'm Ed Donahue.
Do you have taxiety, that uncertain feeling before doing your taxes? Connect with Liberty Tax and then just breathe in and cash out.
Get your refund faster with direct deposit to a Deep Blue debit account.
Deep Blue.
Visit StopTaxiety.com to schedule your appointment, and let's end taxiety. Liberty Tax. Faster access to funds based on comparing refunds via direct deposit versus a mailed paper check. Terms and conditions apply.
Cutting the price of your wireless bill feels good. Really good. So good, you gotta try it. With Straight Talk, you can get our Silver Unlimited plan for just $45 a month. Now with unlimited high-speed data, plus 5 gigabytes hotspot data, and no contract, with nationwide 5G on America's best networks. Why pay a whole lot for your data when you can get unlimited for a whole lot less? Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Across the state, the leading cause of death in the line of duty for Wisconsin police officers and firefighters is now COVID-19. Since the beginning of the pandemic, at least 5 police officers and 10 firefighters have died in Wisconsin after contracting the virus on the job. The statistics match a national report by the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund that found 301 police officers died due to COVID-19 in 2021, by far the leading cause of in-the-line-of-duty deaths last year. Last week, 2 Republican state lawmakers introduced a bill similar to the legislation recently passed in Texas that would make abortion a felony and provide any citizen who sues an abortion provider with a $10,000 bounty. The U.S. Supreme Court plans to announce rulings that affect abortion access this summer. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition. Welcome, KGOE listening on the leftist coast. Welcome to all our listeners, AM 950 in Minneapolis, and of course, WCPT 820 AM, Progressive Voices, and Devil Radio 92.7, the flagship for Devil Radio. I'm here right now in the studios with my good buddy Brian. You could be a part of this big show. Dial us up, 844-967-2789. Now, last week, I left the studio and chased down Ron Johnson. And I, tried to get a lot of mileage out of my small effort, my field trip, if you would, because that's what we do around here. We turn a little into a lot. But anyways, I wasn't the only one that noticed what Ron Johnson had said last week. And Ron Johnson, to local press in the state of Wisconsin, went on a television interview with Channel 8, a small station in La Crosse, your news leader. Channel 8 in La Crosse interviewed Rojo. And Rojo, do we have this sound? Said something to the effect of, parents watch your kids. It ain't society's fault. Play for the people.
People decide to have families and become parents. That's something, they need to consider when they make that choice. I've never really felt it was society's responsibility to take care of other people's children.
Well, as fate would have it, I had RSVP'd, responde si vous played, for a Ron Johnson press conference the very next morning. And I showed up, and I would like to think because he had 3 pressers, but I showed up for the first one. I was the first media in the world to get a crack at Ron Johnson. And I asked him a follow-up question, sort of a self-indulgent follow-up question. Ron, I know you don't care for other people's children being taken care of by society. And of course, his greater point was, we can't afford to pay for other people's kids. And he did brag at the very same press conference that morning about the Trump tax cuts, the unfunded $1.5 trillion tax cuts, and how 95% of small businesses got a little piece of that action. But we can't afford to pay for children. And I asked him a follow-up question. What about orphans? What about, other kids? What is society's responsibility, Ron? Does government have a role? And yes, of course, we're compassionate, all that crap. Why do I know it's crap? Because he, said the crap part, the compassionate part, and then said, but we can't afford it. No, don't want to deficit spend to pay for poor people's kids. My kids are doing just fine. So I thought, well, that's probably the big hullabaloo for the week. Rojo said one asinine thing, that's a good week. Let's call it a week. But then he went and topped it, at least in my perception.
Way to go, Ron.
A more ridiculous statement made by the U.S. Senator from the great state of Wisconsin, a radio interview on January 26, 2022. Ron called me, 844-967-2789. But here's what Johnson said. All these athletes are dropping dead on the field after receiving the COVID-19 vaccination. No, Ron, they're not. They're not. Wouldn't that be worth a Google, Ron? I mean, if you're out there spreading this sort of information, wouldn't it be worth a Google? What athletes? I mean, Bronco bull riders, downhill skiers. I mean, that's some pretty athletes.
I think he was referring to a couple of soccer players, perhaps, but none of that was related to anything. Please know what you're talking about.
Here's what Rojo said. Ron Johnson used to call him a friend of a show. It's been a while since we called him a friend of this show. Here's what he said. We've heard story after story. All these athletes dropping dead on the field. Now, he was talking with Charlie Kirk, who is sort of a kook, a right-wing kind of guy, sort of a Rojo, Trumpy kind of guy. But we're supposed to ignore that. Nothing happening here. Nothing to see. This is a travesty. This is a scandal. As the PolitiFact writes, this was a real jaw dropper for us. All sorts of athletes dropping dead on the field because of the vaccine. Is Johnson right? Question mark. No, writes PolitiFact. No. So anyways, here's a little bit of refuting something that could have been easily refuted if you'd have just Google it right now. While I'm talking, Fancy Brand, do me a favor. Google athletes drop dead on the field. And all you're going to find are PolitiFacts refuting that ever happened. When asked for backup for the claim, Johnson's spokeswoman, Vanessa Ambrosini, told us the center has been alarmed by stories he has heard of athletes dying on the field. Alarmed. Where are you hearing these stories? Who's telling these stories, Ron? Why would you believe these stories? The center's point in raising these issues, he said via email, has always been that our federal health agency should be concerned about reports of adverse reactions related to COVID-19 vaccines, and they should fully investigate and make their findings available to the American people. Well, as the PolitiFact author writes, fair enough, but the claim was that all these stories about all sorts of athletes dying in the midst of competition, or at least while practicing. Patrick Remington, director of the University of Wisconsin-Madison's preventative medicine residency program and a former epidemiologist at the CDC, said the agency is already monitoring such things. Rojo frequently cites a federal database of adverse events that people, from patients to doctors, report to the agency as possibly, that's the part Rojo never seems to pay attention to, possibly connected to various drugs. But the database itself notes the claims are not vetted and establish a cause between them. Remington said the CDC is looking for causation, not just for coincidence of two events happening in proximity to each other, such as a cardiac episode and getting a vaccine. The burden is on credible scientists to study whether vaccination could be associated with this outcome. And no credible science exists to say it is. We continue to do ongoing surveillance. The vaccine surveillance system is in place to study any possible associations that come up. But to date, I am not aware of any studies or any credible research that suggest that vaccines cause death in young athletes. Here's another one. We found no proof of causal relationship in any of the cases between the vaccines and the injuries or the deaths. A couple of prior fact checks. This has been fact checked prior. He doesn't care. So down to the ruling. Let's give Rojo the benefit of the ruling. Judge Judy rules. Johnson claimed that all these athletes are dropping dead on the field after receiving COVID-19 vaccinations. But similar claims have repeatedly been debunked. Doctors have not encountered athletes dropping dead from the vaccine. And doctors for two European soccer players Johnson's staff cited have said those cardiac episodes were not caused by the vaccine. There's also the obvious problem with those cases as they relate to supporting Rojo's claim, so far as the two athletes are not, dead.
Oh, that is kind of important if you're going to claim that, huh?
Yes, if you're claiming people are dying, where are the bodies, sir? Habeas corpus, produce the bodies, Rojo. I think that's right. Finally, health experts have also said that no research. See, I'm getting fired up. Rojo's got me all fired up telling these big lies. Finally, health experts have also said that no research shows the link between sudden death incidents in sports players and vaccines. We rate this claim as false. Why not pants on fire? There is one category worse than false. Pants on fire. I mean, Rojo, I can see your bloomers. Your pants have nearly burned off. Why would you tell this lie? I mean, really, I could see it in his eyes the other day. First time I had seen Ron Johnson in a matter of a year and a half. And the last time I saw him, there's a little spirit left in his eyes. But the other day, the other morning, he seemed just a little broken of spirit. And he went out and he faced the press. And it was just a couple of us. There was maybe, 10 media types, television crews, stuff of that nature. And like me and Channel 27, the local ABC affiliate, we asked a couple of questions. You heard the one I asked. And by the time I tried to ask a follow-up question, and just for the record, my follow-up question was about the gross domestic product. Rojo could have teed off on the inflation rates, but he would have had to acknowledge the strengthening gross domestic product, greatest since Reagan, since 84. But he cut me off and he's looking for friendlier press in the press conference. And the funny part is there wasn't really any friendly press there. So the follow-up question is, those tax cuts, you keep bragging about, Rojo. Didn't one of your donors benefit to the tune of $80 to $200 million in a single year? He's like, what? I can't hear you. That was literally, and I'm like, we all heard it. Just answer the question, Ron. And that's when he went on to brag about the $1.5 trillion tax cut that was primarily for very wealthy people and quote unquote small business owners like Rojo. And, a couple of Rojo's donors like the Widow Hendricks and the U-Lines who gave like $4 million to the January 6th planning, apparently, reportedly. So anyways,
I have some results. I went down and I looked up.
Oh, do you Google?
I Googled it.
Dead athletes.
So athletes drop dead on field, right? That's the Google search.
Is there a story?
Folks, don't open anything. Let me just tell you there. Because the first three things, gopherhole.com, something from Nevada government, right? So I open it up and it says, contents, this email derived from outside of the Nevada government. Do not click on any attachments here as they are not safe. That's a really good thing to think about, maybe a credible source. And the other come from like Dario Vallarta, and some of them are just public commentary. And then a little bit further down, it's just political facts.
How about like ESPN?
No, none of that.
Or like CBS Sports.
Not one credible source amongst the top 10 or 15 things here.
I just want a sports source. Like
deceptive videos used to link athlete deaths to COVID shots. That's US News. And then PolitiFact, the one you just read. Other than that, it's just a bunch of stuff that you probably don't want to open because I've just been dealing with a little bit of a viral jump. Yeah.
In our production computer?
No, it's fine now. It's fine.
I'm never asking you to Google anything ever.
Well, do
not go down the rabbit hole.
Can we not Google things that Ron Johnson should have Googled?
He has staffers. I got you, Fancy Brian. He's got like 40 staffers at the senatorial office. Collectively, they could Google whether or not any athletes had died on the field. But of course, what's the upside to making these easily disproven statements? And I'm not talking about I thought the Patriots were marching up on January 6th. Well, that's a matter of some questionable opinion. But this is a disprovable non-fact, Ron. You can't just say people are dying all over the place. Well, where are the bodies? I'm just looking for some bodies, Ron. Where do you think Ron buries his bodies? You think he's, got some lye, throws it in the hole, buries a body? They never stay out there for long. They decompose that way. Vultures start circling.
You seem to know a lot about it.
I've been watching too much Ozark.
Oh, okay, cool.
And this newest year, and the 7 episodes they released the other night, and I've watched them all just since they released.
The best episodes do have a lot of you learn something from every show.
You need a shovel and some lye and a trunk, to transport the bodies. And then you bury the bodies. And that way you can't find the dead athletes. You just bury them right on the pitch. Think that's a pitcher's mound? No, that's a dead guy. Come back. More Devils. Happy Monday.
I want to see this dead grandmother firsthand.
We're a very compassionate society, and government's role is to help people that can't help themselves or help people.
Tell you what, dipshit. You don't like my policies, you can just come on down here and smooch my big old white butt. Pucker
Why
up,
not
buttercup.
gargle?
Social media? You've kept up with the times. If you can do that, you can definitely save for retirement. Go to aceyourretirement.org and in just 3 minutes, you'll get free tips to help boost your retirement savings. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay, Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Treat yourself to some Wisco Home Goods natural lotions or sugar scrub in 2022. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our natural hand soaps, lotions, and sugar scrubs offer you the luxury you deserve. Wisco Home Goods self-care products come in a variety of scents you're sure to love. So go on, add a little pampering to your daily routine. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing self-care and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
To some, a baby's babbling doesn't mean much, but it does. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
I'm Kirk Bangstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company in deep red northern Wisconsin, and I have a super PAC. We make good trouble by buying billboards, radio ads, and calls to voters in northern Wisconsin. We target federal and state elections, think Ron Johnson and Tom Tiffany, and concentrate on a fair redistricting process. Give a donation now if you're able at the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab. Help us make the politics of the Northwoods as clean as our lakes and streams. That's the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
It was a beautiful day. Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition. Your calls, they're always welcome here. 844-967-2789. Going to turn topically, but first, Dick from Madison, see where Dick takes us. What rabbit hole we go down next, Dick? What do you got for us?
Oh boy, the Trump speech, that was the best, wasn't it?
I didn't watch it in real time, but the threats of the prosecution riots. So like if he gets prosecuted, it's going to be unfair. And in his words, it's going to be a racist prosecutor because, he's white and orange and they're probably black, ?
So he went full Mussolini. I mean, you could just see Stephen Miller and Bannon's fingerprints all over the speech. Especially the part Trump, should have overthrown the election. The only thing I was surprised he left out: why not jail Mike Pence for not overthrowing the election? And all of it was beautiful in that. Guess what? It was done on the anniversary of Adolf Hitler taking over Germany in 1933.
Well, you didn't see the statement that last night, separate of the speech, Dick. Donald Trump said effectively a confession, if you believe in such things, that Mike Pence should have overturned the election. And the fact that, they're now trying to change the Electoral College. They're trying to reform and close any specter of a loophole that a guy like Trump might think he has. He's using his justification to say, well, see, they screwed me the whole time. And that's why they got to, backfill the laws. But of course, what he's effectively done, Dick, is he's confessed. He said, of course, I wanted Mike Pence to overturn the election.
Well, first, and one last thing. Don't get too excited out there about Lindsey Graham saying something about it. I bet before the end of the week, he's down in Mar-a-Lago groveling, and he pulls back everything he said.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Over and under on that.
It's pretty bad when Donald Trump elicits a response from our buddy from South Carolina, Lindsey. I do declare Lindsey got the vapors. Even Lindsey Graham knew that was a bridge too far.
Well, I still see him totally flipping before the end of the week.
Lindsey? Oh, yeah. Oh, he'll flip-flop. Dick, appreciate the call, man. 844.
You're your own worst enemy here, Mr. President. Knock it off.
Well, Lindsey didn't agree with the pardons. Here is the ever strong of backbone. Senator Susan Collins, Fancy Brian, going to need your help. Here is a similar quote unquote strong reaction from the Republican caucus. First, her comments on Joe Biden and his decision that he wants to impanel a black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. But we'll get to the Trump stuff in just a moment. Susan Collins, cut 30, please.
I believe that diversity benefits the Supreme Court, but the way that the president has handled this nomination has been clumsy at best.
There has been no nomination, so stick it in your you-know-what, Susan. More from the Senator Susan Collins. It's not supposed to be political. You remember the Kavanaugh and the Coney Barrett and the Gorsuch? Not political. Cut 31.
It adds to the further perception that the court is a political institution like Congress when it is not supposed to be.
Sister, that ship sailed. Yeah. Yes, Pee-wee, I concur. More from Senator Susan Collins, Republican, if you're unaware. She's open to whomever. Cut 32.
I certainly am open to whomever he decides to nominate. My job as a senator is to evaluate the qualifications.
So it should take you about maybe 6 hours or so, right?
We'll see, because of course, as pointed out earlier, there hasn't actually been a nomination yet. Now she turns to Trump and Susan Collins. She did vote to convict Donald Trump on the January 6th matter. She was one of the handful of Republicans that voted to convict. Yet, here's her strong words when asked, would she vote for Trump again? Cut 33.
Well, certainly it's not likely, given the many other qualified candidates that we have that have expressed interest in running.
But if he wins the nomination, put her down for a yes. One more, Senator Susan Collins. Now, over the course of the weekend, don't forget, Saturday, deep in the heart of Texas, Trump was promising pardons, if he won re-election, just to let some patriots, they've been so falsely persecuted for their patriotism, trying to back up his screwing and the fact that it was rigged election. They stole it from him. Well, here's how Susan Collins reacted to Trump promising pardons. 34.
I do not think President Trump should have made that pledge to do pardons. We should let the judicial process proceed.
You don't think he should be offering pardons? Wow.
Strong words for someone who thought that he learned his lesson the first impeachment.
Here's what George Conway, you remember him? He's married to Kellyanne Conway, part of the, what do they call it? The Lincoln Project.
To which, even though I agree with him on a lot of points, I still question his judgment.
He is married to Kellyanne Conway. He says today, time to read Trump his Miranda rights after his weekend outburst. Just a little bit from Conway, appearing on CNN's New Day on Monday morning. Conservative attorney George Conway stated that former President Donald Trump did not do himself or his lawyers any favors by talking about the January 6th Capitol riot over the weekend. No, I don't think he did. On Saturday, the former president claimed he would consider pardoning the January 6th insurrectionist if he was reelected in 24. And then on Sunday, he issued a statement where he all but admitted he was attempting to get former VP Mike Pence to change the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. Speaking to co-hosts Breonna Keeler and John Berman, Conway, the husband of former Trump advisor Kellyanne, said the former president's lawyers need to reel him in. Yes, you think? With regard to Trump dangling pardons to insurrectionists, Conway stated, if it were possible for someone to have violated their oath of office before even taking it, he just did that right there. As far as practical legal implications of it are concerned, it actually goes to his intent for the second time he was impeached, his intent to obstruct, to cause an insurrection on Capitol Hill. He actually wanted them to do this. And the fact that he is now praising them for having done this shows his intent was pretty much, his state of mind was pretty much, as former press secretary Stephanie Grisham described it, he was glad they did it. And that in turn goes to the potential criminal investigation that he's been apparently very much afraid of given the speech he just gave. This goes to, again, his intent to obstruct, and I'm using the words in Title 18, Section 152 of 151 2C of the U.S. Civil Code, to obstruct or otherwise impede the official proceedings before Congress to count the electoral votes. Oh, that's a criminal code. My bad. More Devil's Advocates. Hour 2 is next.
And we can all look in a mirror and find some blame somewhere.
I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace. So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Here on Devil Radio, the happy hour is always the happiest hour of the day. If you want to end your day on a high note, join the happy hour at the all-new Dark Horse Art Bar, 756 East Washington Ave, right next to Salvatore's Tomato Pies. Happy hours now Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m. with drink and wine specials and $1 slices, and always free parking in our building. The Dark Horse Art Bar. Enjoy this unique, funky, cool space. Surround yourself with art with featured local, regional, and national artists. New shows each month.
Hey, it's Pizza Box Mike. I've got a show outside the Pizza Box. Be sure to listen on Saturdays at noon on Devil Radio. Some of us, were meant to run for public office, and some of us were meant to run others out. That's the side I come from.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations says it's the U.S. that is raising tensions over Ukraine.
They themselves are whipping up tensions and rhetoric and are provoking escalation. The discussions about a threat of war is provocative in and of itself.
Vasily Nebenzia spoke through an interpreter. Russian troops are along the border with Ukraine. Russia has said it does not want to invade Ukraine. President Biden says they're working to preserve peace.
With Russia's continuing its buildup of its forces around Ukraine, we are ready no matter what happens.
More high-level talks are expected this week. A federal judge in Georgia rejected a plea agreement that would have averted a hate crimes trial for Travis McMichael, the man convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. Arbery's parents denounced the proposed deal. At least a half dozen historically black universities in 5 states and Washington, D.C. responded to bomb threats. In some cases, there were lockdowns. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says it's disturbing.
We're relieved to hear that Howard and Bethune-Cookman universities have been given the all clear, and will continue to monitor these reports. President is aware. I don't believe he's received a formal briefing, but he is aware of these reports.
The bomb scares come one day before the start of Black History Month. A ballot drive has started in Michigan that would make it easier to vote. Signatures are needed by July. Nancy Wang is executive director of Voters Not Politicians.
Voters should decide the outcome of elections, not politicians. And while it sounds too obvious to state, this proposal establishes that election outcomes are decided by voters by their votes cast.
The measure was announced as Republicans in Michigan circulate petitions for an initiative they contend would improve election integrity. The Dow finished up 406 points. This is AP News.
Do you have taxiety, that uncertain feeling before doing your taxes? Connect with Liberty Tax and then just breathe in and cash out.
Get your refund faster with direct deposit to a Deep Blue debit account.
Deep Blue.
Visit stoptaxiety.com to schedule your appointment, and let's end taxiety. Liberty Tax. Faster access to funds based on comparing refunds via direct deposit versus a mailed paper check. Terms and conditions apply.
Cutting the price of your wireless bill feels good. Really good. So good, you gotta try it. With Straight Talk, you can get our Silver Unlimited plan for just $45 a month. Now with unlimited high-speed data, plus 5 gigabytes hotspot data, and no contract, with nationwide 5G on America's best networks. Why pay a whole lot for your data when you can get unlimited for a whole lot less? Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
Stay informed with progressive news and talk on WTTN 1580 AM, Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
Wisconsin, you know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court, but did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites, Drew Holiday here.
And Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
They're worried about our power, so they want to take it away.
Don't let them do that.
You've got to block that shot.
Paid for by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign.
This is Rocker, and I'm sitting here on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies, freezing my butt off. So I'm headed next door to the Dark Horse Art Bar for a Rocker Rye whiskey to warm me up. It's a high rye with just a touch of malted barley. It's yummy. Find Rocker Spirits at Festival Foods on East Wash and Woodman's grocery stores. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Quality CBD is your Madison cannabis experience destination. Different than the head shops, Quality CBD is gallery quality art, ambiance, and a Bella bar experience that's second to none. Enjoy kombucha in a Bella glass full of vaporized, legal Delta 8 cannabis. Slow down, relax, and enjoy the experience. Only at Quality CBD, 1222 Williamson Street. Come for the Quality CBD, stay for the experience. Quality CBD, 1222 Willie Street.
From Wanakee to McFarland, 92.7 FM is essential radio to get you through the pandemic.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last week, Republican state lawmakers announced they plan to introduce radical education proposals that would overhaul the state's K-12 education system, that would break up Milwaukee Public Schools, Wisconsin's largest school district, within 2 years and expand the state's private school voucher program. In the first 2 months since the opening of the tiny shelter community for homeless individuals on Madison's southeast side, the services have allowed refuge from the cold winter and for some already a path to permanent housing. The Wisconsin men's basketball team defeated the Minnesota Golden Gophers on Sunday afternoon at the Kohl Center, 66-60. Partly cloudy skies in the forecast today with winds up to 15 miles an hour and a high of 32 degrees. Winds expected to pick up close to 20 miles an hour this evening with an overnight low of 28 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty, there is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Monday edition of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Your call still welcome. 844-967-2789. You can tweet at me. I still tweet occasionally at Devil Radio. And if you haven't liked the Facebook page, why not? I often post my prep material and different communications with the audience at the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. So like us there, or at least consider it. It's worth a thumbs up. But, you know, I want to give a thumbs up to President Joe Biden today. Fancy Brian. And Joe Biden was talking to the Governors Association a little bit earlier today, and he was kind of feeling it. He was frisky, Joe Biden. Oh, no, he was frisky. You can tell it from his attitude because he was delivering. He had deliverables for these governors. And when I say deliverables, I mean gobs of cash, right? So anyways, let's hear a frisky Joe Biden from earlier today. Let's play for the people. Let's start with cut 60. President Joe Biden.
We need to bring back workers to better jobs with better pay and better working conditions than the ones that they left.
Come on, Joe. I heard you frisky earlier today. Somewhere along the line, somebody friskies him up a little bit, gets a little tingle up his leg. Let's keep trying. This might put me to sleep, though. Cut 61.
I know that the education funds help many of you stay open, keep your schools open, and keep them open safely.
It better pep up here soon. I swear to goodness, I heard a peppier, friskier Joe Biden earlier on the Associated Press News. Joe Biden, 62.
Now we need to do even more to get Americans, keep them at work and the essential workers on the job. And that can mean, as some of you used, with hero retention bonuses, higher pay.
Sorry, I nodded off there for a moment. For the love of God, Joe, you're back to boring, Joe. I swear to God, I had heard a peppier, friskier version of Joe. He was laughing with the governors. I got money for you. Let's see if he peps up. Cut 64.
Already, 27 states have announced they're using over $14 billion in the American Rescue Plan funds to get a head start on rebuilding our nation's infrastructure.
Dynamic, this Joe Biden. Cut 64.
We got a hell of a lot to build, and we're gonna build a bunch of them, and also clean water and ports and a whole range of things. We have a lot of opportunity.
I misled all of you. That was the same old Joe. I had heard a friskier, peppier version of Joe. Apparently they didn't feel that soundbite was worthy of sharing with you, our fair audience. I apologize. That seems like plain old Joe. So anyways, the less frisky version of Joe out there selling, bragging. What's he doing? What was that? That wasn't even exciting. Isn't it the role of the president of the United States and also here, the chief executive of the state of Wisconsin? You're in politics. You got to communicate with the people. And ultimately, politics is, in some twisted way, it's sales. You're trying to be persuasive here, people. You're trying to change hearts and change minds, or at least, for the love of God, get someone to be excited about one of the policies you've rolled out, the money you're delivering. You got an audience full of governors. You're delivering billions, if not trillions of dollars. And if there's anything a governor loves, and I mean Democrats, Republicans, delivering the pork. I mean, Joe, you're serving up the biggest ham in America right now. Be excited. Do you not like pork?
Yeah, and a lot of it is perception is reality too. So you have to have some sort of, this is amazing, because if you don't say, this is amazing.
Is this honey glazed? I think it's honey glazed.
Is this amazing? Is it amazing?
I would even,
sounds amazing.
The way Joe's describing it, I don't even want to eat the pork. I'm like, oh man,
Crudy, I just want to let you know that the station, I just got a windfall of a lot of money, and I'm taking the station all the way to Disney World for free. Everybody's paid for. We're all getting a presidential suite and all the drugs we can possibly do and all the drinking we could possibly have. And I've also
at Disney World.
It's amazing. It's so amazing. We're gonna do it. Like, how people have already fallen asleep. If we did our show like that,
I suspect a few in the audience heard free drugs and they perked up a bit.
But even if you say free drugs, you could have it all the time, and you just kind of like this the whole time. It just really doesn't really sell that much. And he may be selling some really good stuff and giving us some really good things. But again, at the end of the day, if you're just, hey, I'm here, guys, it's cool.
But in this day and age, all we really have is the bully pulpit, right? We don't have the courts. We are overwhelmed on the courts. It's a 6-3 court. And we don't have the sort of legislative majorities it takes to get the better part of the agenda done. So what do we have? We have Joe's ability to convince us that the Democrats, and when I say us, I'll brag a little bit for the man occasionally, but I'm talking about the broader electorate. All of us, we're supposed to be convinced this man's delivering for us. He's out there delivering the infrastructure bill. He's writing checks today. You know what? I can tell you, as a small business owner, the only good day, and sometimes the bad day, because you got to make payroll. But when you hand a guy a check, usually that day, if no other, guy likes you. That's a good thing. Hey man, how you doing? Yeah, here's your check. You know what?
That's generally a happy thing from what I'm understanding.
Payday is usually a happy thing for most people. Well, today is payday for the governors or for their respective states. And I wish our president was a little more excited and, delivering. Here's something else. State of Texas, as we talked about, Trump's down there this weekend. And I realize I live quite a bit north, but, we're all in the central time zone. But I saw new polling out of Texas, and I'm a little troubled. Beto O'Rourke trailing Abbott in Texas, trailing him substantially. It's not even close at this point. Now, Abbott, he is the current governor, the Republican, Greg Abbott. He has got a primary battle of sorts. He is currently at 59% in the primary amongst Republicans, and he's got a few notables running against him, at least one. You remember former Rep. Alan West, Republican from Florida, now running for Texas governor? Well, he's in the primary field. And so is former state senator Don Huffines. He's a Republican, and conservative television personality Chad Prather. Well, each one of them has about 7% of the vote. And then there's some computer engineer who has the same name as Abbott's predecessor, Governor Rick Perry. Oops, you remember that guy?
That's unfortunate.
So if I
only remember 2 out of the 3 things I remember about him.
If my name was Tommy Thompson here in the state of Wisconsin, we had a famous 4-term elected 4 times, didn't serve out 4 terms, but Tommy Thompson was his name. And if my name was also Tommy Thompson, like John Jingleheimer Schmidt guy, his name is my name too. That guy at the Rick
John Jacob
Perry?
Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yeah,
there
thank
we
you.
go. It took me a second. I had to rewire.
I was thinking Rick Perry, actually, or Tommy Thompson. If you have the name of the former office holder, just by coincidence, that guy, Rick Perry, pulling in 4% of the vote.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm all for some candidate here just naming themselves La Follette. No first name, no last name, just La Follette.
Here in the state of Wisconsin, La Follette, it's got a great name. La Follette was a Republican. Lots of people forget that progressivism once upon a time was a Republican concept, but I don't know what Doug La Follette is. He's his great grandkid or something. I mean, Doug was probably there. Doug's 84 and Doug's running for Secretary of State of the great state of Wisconsin. But by virtue of the name, I mean, that's like having the name Ford in Detroit.
Yeah.
La Follette's as good as gold. So La Follette keeps winning here in the state of Wisconsin. And as near as I could tell, he runs virtually unopposed on the Democratic side.
He actually asked to run unopposed this year, too. He said, I can't deal with that nonsense.
Like a primary?
Yeah, he doesn't want a primary because he just said,
well, he's 84. Who wants to deal with the primary?
Okay.
He's like a less enthusiastic Joe Biden.
Just a relax.
But he's
guy.
The Secretary of State. The Secretary of State really is just a figurehead because so many of the roles here in the state of Wisconsin have been stripped from the Secretary of State. But I'm talking about the chief executives. And I wish Biden was a little more exciting. But back to Texas and the race for governor there. The general election matchup, Abbott, again, he is the current governor, would begin with a leg up on former Rep. Beto O'Rourke. Now, I first met Beto here in Madison. I believe he came to the coffee shop and stood on some tables and gave a hell of a dynamic speech, a little better than what I just heard from Joe Biden, to be quite frank. And I saw Beto a couple times. I saw him in Iowa, did Cedar Rapids, saw Beto. And he is a dynamic character. But here's why I bring up the Texas gubernatorial race. Beto's got the money, and I suspect Beto's getting some of that money from outside the state of Texas. But Beto is trailing substantially in the polling. And I'm a little concerned that here we go again. We as Democrats, we as liberals, progressives, wearing our hearts on our sleeves and hoping for the implausible that Beto O'Rourke can win the state of Texas statewide. Because in certain districts, I think Beto does just fine. And I think he's a dynamic figure. I think he's a hell of a candidate. And sometimes I just think, if it's a transformational candidate, if the candidate's good enough, if the resume is good enough, if the special sauce is good enough, that someone can win anywhere. But realistically, that may not be the case. Beto may not have a fighting chance in Texas. And that's got me concerned because he's going to get plenty of financial resources that could possibly be expended in other races. But it reminds me of Amy McGrath going up against Mitch McConnell. People wanted it so bad, they filled up her coffers, and that was just money poured down a sinkhole. Come on back, more devil's advocates. Your phone calls could be next. 844-967-2789.
You love them enough to do anything for them.
Dad, can we make 200 cookies for my bake sale tomorrow?
Let's do this. Including checking nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I want to get back to being in my community group.
I want to continue having a soccer season.
So I can throw parties again.
So I can go to her parties.
It'd really be nice to dine in instead of getting delivery for a change.
So I can feel safe and protected for myself and my students.
We each have our own reason for why we're getting vaccinated against COVID-19. What will yours be? Visit getvaccineanswers.org for information on the COVID-19 vaccines. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
With so much loss, you may feel like you can't handle it all. Meditation or other spiritual practices can help you feel more grounded and better able to cope.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Spruce up your home with soy candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents. Did you know our candle jars are also double old-fashioned glasses? That's right, buy a candle and you get a free cocktail glass. Check out our blog at wiscohomegoods.com/blog for more information. That's wiscohomegoods.com/blog.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And what's the third one there? Let's see.
I believe it was the Department of Energy, Rick Perry. Oops. Remember, he was a presidential candidate. He was
serious
also,
presidential candidate.
Well, he was a Republican, so define serious. But I would also point out he was the guy that Zelensky in regards to Ukraine. He supplied Zelensky with the American contractors that just happen to be big donors to Rick Perry. Rick Perry thinks Rick Perry's donor should be at the top of the list to supply gas and oil and petrochemicals.
That's totally normal. That didn't happen. That's the way politics are done. That's totally good, right?
I believe I questioned U.S. Senator Ron Johnson about that because Ron Johnson also went to the Ukraine as an emissary of the Trump administration once upon a time, to offer
very credible guy,
a quid pro quo, and he wanted Trump to release the missiles, but Trump needed a favor though. And so anyways, I asked Ron, did it bother you at all that we go to meet with this foreign president and you're there and Rick Perry's there, I believe, and Rick Perry presents to a foreign leader the name of one of his donors as basically the only guy to buy your oil from?
That sounds lovely.
When you mix it in there with the prior quid pro quo and the phone call from Trump, the perfect phone call, I think he described it as. Well, anyways, why did we go there? I don't know. I've got a different direction. What's that? Rick Perry. Oops. So anyways, let's talk about something near and dear. Going to the bar. I like going to the bar. I'm a Wisconsinite. I mean, here in Wisconsin, you go to a bar, there's probably a baby sitting at that bar. They got like baby seat holders right at the bars here in Wisconsin. At least in the finer bars, they do.
10 of the 20 drunkest cities in America and 4 in the top 10. Actually, the top 4.
12 of 20. Come on, man. Don't undercut the alcohol.
I double checked it. It was 10. But either way, it doesn't matter. There's a lot. There's a lot.
2020 stats or 2021 stats? Because
either way, there's a lot, and there's only 2 outside of the Midwest.
Well, let's talk about a bar promotion. We represent a couple of fine drinking establishments. Hawks here in Madison.
We've had some events there too.
The new art bar, the Dark Horse Art Bar, they're featuring their happy hour specials. Well, in Washington State, they got sort of a different promotion they're doing. They got the Catch the Virus COVID-19 promotion.
Oh, that's totally not going to go wrong at all.
The Bessel Tap House owner Steve Hartley told the Daily Herald that 4 employees quit their jobs and 3 bands refused to play at their pirate-themed bar over the promotion. I don't want to wear a pirate shirt.
Pirate.
I mean, it could have been over the wardrobe requirements, patch over one side, a puffy sleeve shirt. But anyways, back to the...
But I don't want to be a pirate.
Yeah, exactly, Jerry. The bar promoted a concert on January 22nd by urging bargoers to bring proof of a positive COVID-19 test to get $4 off their tickets.
Oh, worth it. Totally.
If you bring a positive test, you get $4 off. Sadly, as I'm saying these words, there's a bar owner in Wisconsin, some conservative going, yeah.
I mean,
now that's my kind of happy hour.
Why stop there? Why not get De Niro and Walking Out and have like a Russian roulette contest in the back as well? I mean, not everybody will die, right?
Here is how they were promoting the big event in a now deleted Facebook post. Come see the show. Maybe catch the virus or just stay home and whine. Tickets $10 or 6 with proof of Omicron positive test. Have you had enough? 3 question marks. Have you had enough?
I love that those are the only choices. Like you couldn't do anything else besides go home and whine.
Atrocity Girl, one of the bands billed to play that night, released a statement on Facebook pulling out of the event. After talking it over, we feel really disturbed that this post was ever allowed to be made. We do not condone this behavior and do not think COVID is a joke. While we want to play and love being out there, we encourage everyone to stay safe. It's pretty bad when the rock and roll bands have to be the voice of reason.
Yeah, the rock and roll band.
I'm not talking about you, Kid Rock, but others.
The first band I worked for, first day after their show, first gig, she went down and banged her head and got stitches in her head and still played. Not a medically advisable thing. She would be the first to tell you, maybe this is not a good idea.
Atrocity Girl frontman Johnny Angel told CBS affiliate KIRO, your news leader, that he was shocked by the promotion. Shocked, I tell you. I was appalled, Angel said in a statement. I was really, really disappointed that anyone could ever really make a post like that. Hartley said the promotion was an ill-advised attempt at humor and that the employees responsible had been fired from the bar. Come on, man. That was your bright idea. Hey, I got a bright idea. We'll have a COVID party. We'll get $4 off if you bring a prop. Because the employees all quit. If it was the manager, wouldn't you fire the manager? But when your employees quit and you blame it on that was a bad idea somebody had. It was your bad idea.
Talk about not being able to read the room. My God.
We were getting comments that we were trying to infect the public. Clearly, we have no interest in that. No, literally, you said, come on down. Maybe you'll get the virus.
We only want to infect those who want to be infected and our employees who have no choice to show up, though.
People aren't going to come and drink if they get sick, and we know that. Do you, though? The highly transmissible Omicron variant now accounting for nearly all coronavirus cases in the U.S. The country was reporting upwards of 600,000 daily cases and nearly 2,000 daily deaths of last week. But that's mostly just athletes out there on the field, right, Vance Bry?
Oh, yeah, they
that's
just
from
dropped
the
out
vaccination.
all the time.
That's not for the actual Omicron.
Oh, it's true because Ron Johnson, he's credible.
Reliable source. Ron Johnson says it is. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates The happier 4 o'clock happy hour, it rolls on. Your calls always appreciated. Not necessary, but we like when you do it. 844-96. Let me try again. 844-967-2789. Have a drink on me. Come catch the COVID. We're having a party.
And what's the third one there? Let's see.
The name Zelensky.
But I don't want to be a pirate.
I find your lack of Devil Radio 92.7 disturbing. Do not fail me again.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Rocker. Meet me at the new Dark Horse Art Bar in East Wash. Happy hour is Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m. You pick the day. 2-for-1 rail drinks and slices of Sal's tomato pies for $1. Jimmy, it's happy hour at the Dark Horse Art Bar. 756 East Washington in Madison, across from the Sylvie.
Madison's newest happy hour, craft cocktail, local art and music. Find out more at the new Dark Horse Art Bar and Gallery, online at darkhorsemadison.com.
Do you need to hire? Let Devil Radio help your business find the right candidate with our Help Wanted Half Minutes. Devil Radio will create a 30-second job listing for your business. Play it on Devil Radio for the month. We'll feature your job listing during Afternoon Drive on Fridays, and we'll even publish your Help Wanted listing on Devil Radio 927.com's website, all for just $300 per month. If you're hiring, Devil Radio can help. Call today.
UN and Ukraine. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The United Nations Security Council met an open session today about Russia's 100,000 troops near Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, says even though the council took no action, a vast majority opposes Russia's aggression.
Russia heard clearly a united position from the vast majority of the council, and I hope that that will lead to a diplomatic solution.
Vladimir Putin is demanding NATO not allow Ukraine into the alliance and withdraw troops from other Eastern European nations. Federal judge rejects a plea agreement that would have avoided a hate crimes trial for Travis McMichael, convicted of murder in the shotgun slaying of Ahmaud Arbery in a neighborhood outside Brunswick, Georgia. Arbery's parents both objected to the agreement. A second deal with Greg McMichaels has not been ruled on by U.S. District Judge Lisa Godby Wood. Both McMichaels and a neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, were convicted of murder and sentenced to life in state prison. I'm Tim McGuire.
Do you have taxiety, that uncertain feeling before doing your taxes? Connect with Liberty Tax and then just breathe in and cash out.
Get your refund faster with direct deposit to a Deep Blue debit account.
Deep Blue.
Visit StopTaxiety.com to schedule your appointment, and let's end taxiety. Liberty Tax. Faster access to funds based on comparing refunds via direct deposit versus a mailed paper check. Terms and conditions apply.
Cutting the price of your wireless bill feels good, really good. So good, you gotta try it. With Straight Talk, you can get our Silver Unlimited plan for just $45 a month. Now with unlimited high-speed data, plus 5 gigabytes hotspot data, and no contract, with nationwide 5G on America's best networks. Why pay a whole lot for your data when you can get unlimited for a whole lot less? Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Saturday night, a man was shot in the Beloit Memorial High School parking lot during the Beloit Memorial versus Madison La Follette's varsity basketball game. The Beloit Police Department reported the individual passed away from the injuries sustained from the gunshot wound while at the hospital. The teams were kept in lockdown in the Beloit Memorial locker rooms, and the Madison School District stated no Madison students were injured in the shooting incident. Last week, the Republican Party of Iowa County wrote a letter to Assembly Speaker Robin Boss, decrying the Speaker for reprimanding State Representative Timothy Rantham, signaling the divisions across the Republican Party of Wisconsin over the 2020 election review. Two developers are proposing to purchase a family farm on Madison's east side near Milwaukee Street and Fair Oaks Avenue to build new multi-use developments. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the 4 o'clock happy hour, the Monday edition. It rolls on. Your phone calls always welcome here. 844-967-2789. And then at the end of the show, I'm sneaking in a little John Nichols from The Nation. And he's got a brand new book, and he's got a big book event tonight. So John asked for a small favor, and I asked him for so many. I thought, sure, I can return the favor once. John's new book, Coronavirus Criminals and the Pandemic Profiteers. John Nichols from The Nation joins us in like 15 minutes. 844-967-2789. Got a little breaking news. Now, I see this at multiple sources, so it must be true. The former Vice President, Mike Pence, well, his chief of staff, Mark Short, quietly testified before the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th last week in response to a subpoena. Sources tell CNN in the most significant sign to date that Pence's team is cooperating with the probe. That's going to be a sticky wicket for Trump, right? Because Pence's team, including Mark Short was with Pence at the Capitol. He knows what happened. He knows what Pence told Trump, and he knows Trump didn't do anything. If anything, he incited the crowd. Go hang him. Effectively.
Didn't he bring up Pence again this weekend?
Yeah, effectively. And that was sort of the confessional part of what Trump said in his statement yesterday. Well, if Pence had only overturned the election, none of this would have happened. And the fact that they're changing the rules, the electoral college count rules, well, that's just proof to show that Mike Pence always had the power to overturn the outcome of the election. And of course, Trump's contention, he should have, but he didn't. He didn't have the courage to do the right thing.
So let's say here, let's say that, a bunch of people, a mob, let's say, or a group of folks were chanting, hang your name, like insert your name. And then afterwards, the people that maybe sent those folks were like, hey, man, can you do us a solid and testify? Would you be a little bit more, pliant, or would you be a little bit more, maybe no, I'm not going to go inside with the people who chanted hang. But
Mike Pence needs the very votes of those that would hang Mike Pence, or at least chant that chant. He needs those people. And if he turns on those people, at least publicly, well, he ends all of his own personal ambitions to be the future president of the United States.
Wow, what a fun twister game we're having right now.
Again, it's a sticky wicket of sorts. Here's a little of the reporting from CNN. Short, who was with Pence at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and participated in a critical White House meeting on January 4th, 2021. That's when they were basically laying out the Eastman memo, the Green Bay sweep, and all the plans. It is seen as a potentially crucial witness. Yeah, go figure, in the committee's investigation as the panel pieces together the pressure campaign that then President Trump and his allies waged to try and convince Pence not to certify the presidential election. Short testified before the Select Committee in person last Wednesday in a lengthy session, at least according to CNN's reporting. According to a source familiar with the matter, Short had previously supplied a limited number of documents that were subpoenaed by the committee, according to one source, including a memo from Trump aide Johnny McEntee comparing Trump to Thomas Jefferson. Now why don't you ever compare me to any of the founding fathers, Fancy Brian?
You don't wear a wig. That's literally
I could.
Otherwise, it's nearly identical.
It's also customary that witnesses hand over more documents when they testify, according to another source familiar with the matter. Short's testimony, obtained after months of discussions between his attorney, Emmett Flood, that's sort of a famous name, and lawyers on the committee, as well as subpoena, comes as the panel still does not know whether Pence himself will testify. Short declined to comment. A spokesman for the committee declined to comment as well. So is this sort of a, testimony by proxy? You hate to put the former VP on the hot seat, but you'd like to get his testimony. I mean, it means more coming from Pence, but his chief of staff obviously has laid out all of the facts, or probably in this, lengthy testimony. So the question becomes, does Mike Pence do the right thing? And I don't mean calling Dan Quayle and asking him, is an insurrection okay? No. How do you spell potato?
It's just,
I get spelling advice and insurrection advice from Dan Quayle, the what? Former congressman turned vice president.
Is one vice president to another. I thought we were supposed to do nothing. And apparently I have to do something now. And now I have to go and advocate for people who wanted to hang me. Wow, what wonderful tangled webs we weave.
But it's been implied that somehow Pence is a hero of sorts. He did heroic things. He stood up to Trump. Yeah, to the pressure campaign.
When?
Well, I'd like to see him stand up now. Henry Olsen at the Washington Post writes this, an opinion piece. Former President Donald Trump went beyond the pale, even for him, when he said this weekend that he might pardon the January 6th rioters if reelected, and reiterated his belief that his vice president, Mike Pence, had the power to overturn the election. Pence has eschewed criticizing his former boss since leaving office. He should reconsider as he prepares his remarks for this week's Republican National Committee meeting. Going to speak to the RNC, is he? Trump's insistence that he won the 2020 election remains a serious problem for Republicans nationwide. They don't see it as such. But I read on. While most party leaders have ignored his insistent claims, candidates for office cannot. There's no avoiding taking a stance on whether they agree with Trump on the campaign trail. Too many have openly supported his democracy-defeating lies, whether out of misguided conviction or fear that Trump will oppose them if they don't. That means the GOP could be saddled with a large number of 2020 truthers in the midterm, the 2020 truthers. Sooner or later, someone with stature has to take the lie head on. The longer party leaders wait, the more potential office holders will have to defend the indefensible. The emperor has no clothes, but it takes someone with the courage to say it out loud to break the spell. Mike Pence, the question is, do you have any decency, sir? Pence is the perfect person to do this, and his scheduled talk this week at the RNC's winter meeting is the perfect place to pick up the gauntlet Trump has thrown down. Ultra-Trumpists may now despise Pence, but the vast majority of Republicans and GOP office holders respect him. His courage, while under immense pressure from Trump last year, was laudatory. I think less laudatory. And his courage during and after the riot was immeasurable. As the person under direct attack from Trump, he is also the natural person to rebut Trump's false claims. He could start by explaining why he did not have the power to unilaterally disregard the will of the electors from swing states. That would entail both a legal parsing of his constitutional and legal responsibilities and a clear defense of the rule of law. Oh, I don't think he's got it in him. All of those states submitted slates of delegates according to state law, and no official alternative was submitted by a duly empowered state body. Thus, there was no dispute for Congress to resolve the poorly written Electoral Count Act of 1887, notwithstanding. A little bit more here. More importantly, he could start breaking down the lie that the 2020 election was perverted by massive voter fraud. He could state clearly and forthrightly that he, and by extension, Trump, lost. Pence doesn't have to say everything was perfectly kosher. It wasn't. Partisan Democratic election officials in Wisconsin, for example, reportedly issued pandemic-related guidance to local elections officials that ran afoul of state law. Talking to you, George Christensen, my college classmate, and you, Scott McDonald from Dane County as well. But as an exhausting review of the election in Wisconsin shows, none of those efforts made a difference. The Trump-Pence ticket lost despite inspiring millions of new voters to turn out because it lost ground in educated suburbs nationwide. Pence could make the case in detail and call Trump's evidence-free bluff. Pence could take a great risk to his own aspirations should he engage with Trump, but he continues to take a great risk by not engaging. He cannot avoid making a clear statement of 2020's legitimacy if he decides to run for president himself, nor could he avoid the risk of alienating Trump acolytes with that statement. Better than to move first when he has the time to make his case. This also would give him an aura, a bold action, a presidential prerequisite, but not exactly a characteristic that normally applies to the cautious Hoosier. Pence is a devout Christian, and he is surely intimately familiar with Jesus's prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm less familiar, at least with the
Garden of Gethsemane.
Oh, thank you. Before he was arrested and tried, Jesus went to the garden knowing his fate. He prayed that his father would take the cup of death from him, but also that he could not be spared. That God's will would be done. The cup would not pass. Jesus' crucifixion. I feel bad for all the non-believers out there, but I read to the end of the paragraph at least. And for believers, his resurrection and the world's redemption is what followed. It's blasphemous to equate Pence with Christ, but it is not. You think? We're nearing the conclusion here, folks. Bear with me just a moment longer. I'll try not to blasphemous. It is blasphemous to equate Pence with Christ, but it is not blasphemous to note that sometimes one must courageously accept one's fate. Pence has two choices in life: shrink into private life entirely, or someday meet his fate as the man with the conviction and the stature needed to engage Trump in this battle. That political and personal cup will not pass, no matter how fervently he might pray that it does. Trump's statements are a direct challenge to Pence. We already know that Trump thinks Pence was a coward on January 6th. What better rebuke than to show courage when it is least expected and take the battle home to the bully? Well written, Henry Olson in the Washington Post. Pence will not do any of that.
All I know is that the Green Bay Packers can make the Super Bowl if only Mike Pence had the courage.
If only he did. Quickly, we'll throw CJ in the mix. CJ, you got like 2 minutes, man.
Well, thanks, dude. I guess as I hear you talk about, January 6th and everything, or November 6th, January 6th, and I remember your 2024 presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton, disputed her results of 2016.
I never did.
Still does.
I never questioned the Electoral College outcome. You never heard me utter the words that Trump was less than legitimately elected through the Electoral College process. Now, he garnered less votes even the year he won, but I wasn't lost in the woods with Hillary, man. I never claimed that Trump wasn't legitimately elected. Now, I said many, many times on the air, CJ, not my freaking president, but, that's a whole different slate.
Thank God your vote still matters because of the Electoral College. And this is going to be a referendum.
But that's not what you wanted, CJ.
President.
Your guy didn't want the Electoral College to uphold. I mean, certainly it wasn't, CJ, it wasn't about the popular vote. He lost by 7 million votes. So the only path for many Republicans going forward in national.
Understanding my point, Rudy.
Well, I don't, CJ. You're not making a good one.
The 2022 election is going to be a referendum on the poor job they've done from everything from Afghanistan, China, Russia, the border. It's a referendum on the poor job that your president, my president, and the pitiful job that our vice president has done. It's not going to be about Donald Trump right now.
It is, though, CJ. It's always because Donald Trump's going to insert himself into the electoral process, and it's going to be a relitigation of his term. And his term compared to Joe Biden's term, give me 3 more of Joe. Come back. John Nichols. He wrote a new book. I'll tell you all about it. More Devil's Advocates.
That I ain't got courage. You could say that again.
I think the White House could have handled this better.
Courage.
I love this song. I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzz warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Learning in person.
Hi, John Nichols. How was John Nichols today?
I am well. How are you?
Fantastic.
Find your place, please.
Excellent. Getting back to the moments we miss Good to see you. starts with getting informed.
Pleasure, man. I'm going to dip out here myself for a moment.
Get the
but
latest
then,
info
Very
about
dippy of you.
COVID-19
I'll still be here,
vaccines
just not on camera.
GetVaccineAnswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Treat yourself to some Wisco Home Goods natural lotions or sugar scrub in 2022. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our natural hand soaps, lotions, and sugar scrubs offer you the luxury you deserve. Wisco Home Goods self-care products come in a variety of scents you're sure to love. So go on, add a little pampering to your daily routine. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing self-care and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
Social media? You've kept up with the times. If you can do that, you can definitely save for retirement. Go to aceyourretirement.org and in just 3 minutes, you'll get free tips to help boost your retirement savings. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I'm excited to announce our new beer, AOC IPA. This IPA pays homage to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a champion of the progressive movement. AOC IPA is now available in stores throughout Wisconsin. Check our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to see which stores in your area are carrying it.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Welcome back to our good friend, journalist, author, John Nichols from The Nation. And he's got a new book out, Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers, Accountability for Those Who Caused the Crisis. John Nichols, only been a couple days, but welcome back, man.
Honor to be with you, my brother.
But seems timeless. You're a timeless author. John, you're a prolific author, man. You said, well, you know, you just write books. That's what we do. And I said, no, that's what you do, John. This cat's never written a book. John, how many in the John Nichols series is this for you?
Well, I guess I've been the author or the co-author of about a dozen books, mostly on politics and media. I did a number of books with my colleague, Bob McChesney, on media issues over the years. But last few years, I've done about, every couple of years I'll do a book. And this one, I don't have a schedule for it, but I write books when I think they're needed. And this one was especially necessary because I felt that the pandemic was exploited by some pretty sleazy politicians and some pretty sleazy rich people.
Well, John, let's talk about the featured face on the cover of the book, the pandemic profiteers, if you will. I don't want to misidentify anyone, John. Who are the three featured?
Well, I think you got Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, and Jared Kushner, if I'm not mistaken. Although on the audio book, they added, I think Betsy DeVos and a couple of other people made that cover as well.
So when you talk about Bezos, I mean, I get Trump and I get Jared Kushner, but why is Bezos in there? Is he a pandemic profiteer in your opinion, John?
Oh yeah. Look, I mean, he, in fairness to Bezos, he's something of a stand-in for billionaires in general. At the start of the pandemic, billionaires in the United States controlled about $3 trillion in wealth. And we should pause for a second. 3 trillion is a pretty good amount of money. 18 months into the pandemic, they had 5 trillion. That was one of the most exponential increases in the transfer of wealth from the great mass of people to the very, very wealthy in American history. And Bezos, as well as Elon Musk and a few others, were the real beneficiaries of this. They made so much money, they didn't know what to do with it. They started flying around in outer space. And the critical thing to understand about this is that they didn't make that money because they contributed something in a humane or necessary way. What they did was they maximized their profits in a situation where people were desperate. Now, I don't deny for a second that Amazon was very useful. It has been very useful during the pandemic. But you should understand that Amazon fired workers who reported that their warehouses were unsafe. Amazon refused to cooperate with efforts to unionize their warehouses. And when we know that unions do a much better job than a non-unionized setting in making sure that physical plants are safe. Again and again, Amazon chose, and Jeff Bezos chose, enriching himself over taking the steps that would protect his own workers. And frankly, that would create the best possible circumstance for society in a crisis moment. So that's how he made his way in.
And John, obviously the pandemic, I'm a small business owner. I know lots of small business owners. They were crushed. They were shut down many times by local mandates, and state and federal and every other damn thing, John. Obviously it was hard to compete on Main Street. In some small part, did Amazon step in and fill that void because you couldn't go down to Main Street? Is that where Amazon made all the money at, John?
Sure, 100%. They definitely, as they have throughout their existence, and this isn't just Amazon, it's also a lot of the big chain stores and that. And bottom line is that Main Street businesses, small shopkeepers, small restaurant owners, as well as small farmers in our country, have been at the short end of the stick for a long time. And when the pandemic hit, that just simply accelerated. And I write a lot in the book about how working class people, not just folks who are in the traditional frontline places like a hospital or driving a bus, but also people who do own small shops and small restaurants, how they ended up struggling to get through this, giving a great deal of shared sacrifice. At the same time, billionaires, they retreated to their country homes and their waterfront villas, and they just moved money on their computers and became dramatically richer. And what I argue is that they didn't sacrifice in the same way that everybody else did. So maybe it's time to do what Franklin Roosevelt did during World War II. And that is say that, in an emergency situation when the country is really suffering, you ought to have a 95% top marginal tax rate on the wealthy. And also that you ought to tax excess profits on corporations. And, the interesting thing about it is that when Roosevelt and the New Dealers did that during World War II, it didn't crash the country. It made the country stronger. We actually beat fascism. In fact, it was so popular that they kept a greater than 90% tax rate on the top marginal earners throughout not just Roosevelt's administration and Truman's administration, but right into Republican Dwight Eisenhower's administration.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine author of a brand new book, Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers. He is John Nichols from The Nation. John, you got an event going on tonight. Before I forget to ask, what's the event?
Yes. Well, we're doing something with the Progressive Magazine. Bill Leaders, who's the great editor over there, is going to interview me about the book. We're going to do it in conjunction with A Room of One's Own bookstore. And if you go to A Room of One's Own website, just Google it on A Room of One's Own bookstore, Madison, you'll find a button you can tap there. It's as simple as that, and join the live stream. You can also, and this is the one thing I encourage, if you are inclined to buy the book, buy it from an independent bookstore like A Room of One's Own or one of the many other great independent bookstores we have in Madison and communities around here. Support those Main Street businesses. That's what we'll be doing tonight.
John, we've talked about the fact there was literally grifting going on, but there is also sort of the grift of political expediency. Ron Johnson, I was eviscerating him, or at least hammering away again, because he's saying, people are falling over dead, athletes falling over dead after getting the COVID vaccine. Well, Ron Johnson may not be personally profiting in a financial sense, but Ron's certainly trying to make some political hay off misinformation. Does he factor in the coronavirus criminals and pandemic profiteers?
Oh, yeah. Ron Johnson gets a chapter in the book. So does Rebecca Bradley, the state Supreme Court justice. So we've got a couple of Wisconsinites elbowing their way in. But Ron Johnson is a special case here because there's no question that he's spread an immense amount of misinformation that has been deadly and incredibly dangerous. And so as far as I'm concerned, you want to identify a coronavirus criminal? There's a lot of them, but Ron Johnson's very high on that list.
John Nichols, how do people take part in the big book event tonight?
You just go to A Room of One's Own website, and they'll have a icon right up there. You press that button, you can join the live stream and hear Bill Leaders for the Progressive and I talking about this book and talking about who the profiteers were and how we tax them.
John Nichols from The Nation, friend of ours. Hope you have a big event tonight. Thanks for coming around on the Devil's Advocates.
Thanks. It's an honor to be with you, my friend.
Thank you, John. Have a great night. Stick around, all you fair listeners. Earl Ingram is next. Keep it locked, Devil Radio.
When people try to sell books, they do all sorts of interesting, exotic things.
I want to see this dead grandmother firsthand.
It's over. Nothing matters anymore.
I did what I came to do.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res.